my brother-in-law was running the country's largest Red Lobster at the time. So I would talk to him about running a business.
We are going to be talking about systems, implementing multi-seven-figure systems in a law firm, in a business. I'm super excited because systems is not that exciting. So we're going to try and bring some excitement to the word systems. Over to you, Jay.
So I am Jay Ruane, and I own a law firm. I'm a law firm owner. And as of last Friday, I am officially out of the practice of law. I've been working 20 years and decided about 6 months ago that I was going to exit the business and just be a law firm owner. I resolved my last case last Friday. And so now my job is to make sure that this law firm functions properly and to move the business forward. But I'm going to show you guys how I do it and the systems that I use to sort of reinvigorate our firm year to year today.
I want to ask Jay, who was your mentor for systems? Who taught you the level of systems that you implemented?
So my journey to systems was a little bit different. I actually needed to have systems in place because I was starting a trial and didn't know how to add postage to the postage meter when I was working on a Sunday night. And I have a criminal offense firm here in Connecticut. And so basically I got to a point where I said, I had cobbled together different systems over time, a series of letters that would go out to all my DUI clients. And really I was scaling faster than I could attend to the clients. And since we were getting common questions and that type of thing, I just wanted to, worry about my responsibility as a lawyer to be in communication with my clients. I mean, that's one of the rule 1.4 for communication is one of the biggest things that lawyers get dinged on with ethical boards is that they fail to communicate with the client. So I started building systems of communication, outbound communication, really as my first thing to avoid those problem areas that would crop up. Because if I knew if I had 100 DUI clients and all were calling me at the same time, I would be in a bind because I wouldn't be able to talk to all of them, and I didn't want to be on the back end of a bar complaint. So I sort of stumbled into it, and then my brother-in-law was running the country's largest Red Lobster at the time, so I would talk to him about running a business, and he would have 100 wait staff on the floor on a Friday night. He'd have 40 people in the kitchen and doing these things. And so he was basically manufacturing food at a huge scale, starting from nothing, starting from when the first customer walks in at 5 p.m. until midnight. And they had to have a ton of systems. So I would ask him questions about that to see how they handled things, and then just start to figure out how I could apply those things as my operation scaled to make it more efficient. And that's really what it comes down to. And then I stumbled upon John's book. I actually got it from a mutual friend. So then I have a system in place for when a book comes into my office, it immediately gets shipped out to a scanning company. They slice the spine off of it. They scan it. They make it a PDF. I can let everybody in my office gain access to it. I converted it to a Word document so I could steal half of John's systems, put them into my repository. And so that's how we were able to do things to really sort of build our systems to where we need to be to run this operation.
What's something that you've officially delegated everything regarding casework, but was there anything that was high level that you thought at one point, there's no way I could give this up? Like, I'm the only person who can do this, that you eventually found you could systemize and delegate?
So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that one of the successes of my firm comes from my marketing ideas and the things that I'm willing to do. And so we actually created a system, cribbed a system from another speaker, added to it ourselves. We created an internal system that allows my marketing team to brainstorm anything in about 15 minutes. And so what I've been able to do is actually take myself out of the new ideas for marketing process. I still have my ideas, and what I'll do is I'll add them to the channel, and then what they'll do is they'll take that idea, they'll brainstorm on it and figure out how to implement it best. So I used to be micromanaging the marketing ideas and saying, okay, here's my idea, and here's the 40 things we need to do to execute this idea. Now what it is, here's my idea, and they attack it and say, here's the 45 things we need to do. And the great thing about that is, because I have a 3-person marketing team in-house, is that each one of them brings different sensibilities. And so sometimes they see things that I don't necessarily see. And so it's not me limiting to myself. It's actually expanding on the idea even more because we have more people touching it. And one of the hardest problems with that is, when you are someone who has built a business, there is this natural tendency to want to bring everything in and hold it tight because it is your baby, it is your business. But as you start to step back slowly, you can see that other people that you've hired and you've trained have been able to add, and they get your mindset after, over years of working with you, so they're able to do things.
I want to transition here to KPIs, key performance indicators for you, Jay. I want to first think, like, what are the most important 5 numbers that come to your mind as the CEO, as the law firm owner, as you said, not the practicer of law, but the law firm owner? What are the top 5 numbers that you're looking at from a zoomed out perspective to have a pulse on the firm?
So for me and my type of practice, the 5 numbers that we look at basically are fees quoted and retained. That's one number basically for our new clients each week, because we're getting cash from clients when they retain us. We're not a contingency fee firm. The other thing is we're looking at our paid in full versus our payment plans. We do extend, 0% financing to some clients, and we will finance their legal fee over time. We factor that in. We have a very aggressive system for making sure that we don't miss payments. We have less than a 1% loss rate every year, so it's manageable to me. But it's because we have people monitoring that stuff almost daily, and actually pretty much daily now, to make sure that we are on top of things like credit card expiration dates and the like. Because if you don't have a system for that, what'll happen is you'll wake up one day and you'll be owed $250,000 of expired credit cards that easily could have been paid, and now you're sucking wind looking for where your payroll's coming from. We also actually bill our clients, even though we're a flat fee practice. That's something that we have done just so that we can identify our time spent per file, so we can see who is an outlier as an attorney. Because if one attorney is spending 4 times the amount of time on their files than another attorney, then we need to figure out why one attorney is either super efficient or one attorney isn't efficient. And what we have found is sometimes the super efficient attorney is missing things and not doing some of the stuff that they should be doing. So that's another number. Another thing that I look to in my CRM, we have our own CRM that we built over the last 15 years using FileMaker, but a lot of people use Clio or FileVine or whatever it is. We actually look to see the number of file notes that each attorney makes on a file. What I have found is that attorneys who have decided that they're going to start interviewing and start looking for another job, you'll start to see a decline in the work that they're doing on file, because they start doing the bare minimum as they're on their way out the door. And so that's sort of a red flag to me as an owner, that someone, might be, just trying to make it through the next 2 months before they're able to get everything in order and make that move if they're planning on leaving the firm. And, I employ a lot of young lawyers. My business model allows me to bring people in right after law school, teach them, train them over a 2-year period. And usually by the 3rd year, they're ready to leave and go on to another job. That's part of the system that we've gotten into place. And we do have a very active training program that we've been doing for years. And I know that there's going to be turnover in my staff. I am not looking for people who are going to be with me for 30 years because I've built the systems in place that I can get a new lawyer, a baby lawyer right out of law school, and in 3 months have them trained and ready to go for 90% of the workload that we'll do here in our office. And so those are the numbers that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The more systemized you become, there's a certain play to where your cost of goods sold and your payroll expense can decrease as a percentage of gross revenue, because you're able to recruit people who are lower level and bring them up to speed faster. So have you noticed, I'm kind of asking you a question on the return on investment, the ROI of systems. Have you noticed that as you become more systemized, you are able to have less number of team members or employees or attorneys, whatever that is, because you're more efficient? Or have you noticed that you need pretty much the same amount of people and maybe it just increases profits or some other factor? What's the return on investment that you've noticed statistically in a profit and loss statement being systems driven?
Well, for me, I can say that for being systems driven, it allows us to recognize and realize much more profit than we would if we were not systems driven. I can identify a file when we open it up and can say, okay, by this date, this case should resolve, plus or minus 1 or 2 months, 1 or 2 court dates, and the like. And the good thing is, and this is the thing that I think a lot of people who may be hesitant to a systems-based practice should identify. There is a level of confidence you can have when you have a systems-based process that truly allows you to do exceptional legal work, because your mind is no longer cluttered with the minutia of the day-to-day, and it allows you to think of and dream up of new ways that you can represent your client better. And so by taking, the worry out of, okay, I've just put a case on the trial list for us as criminal defense lawyers, what motions need to be filed, I know I can come back from court, hand off the files, schedule the to-do, and one of my paralegals can generate the 14 standardized motions that we would file in every DUI case. And I don't have to think about that more than the minute it takes me to schedule that to-do. And really, it's just pushing a button in our system to file the motions, and the right people get tasked with and all that stuff. And that gives me now an hour, 2 hours that another lawyer would have to do. Okay, which file did I file that motion on? I got to find it. I got to bring it in here. I got to put these in an email, send them. No, I don't have to do all that stuff. I can actually sit back and think about, okay, how would I cross-examine this police officer in a new way? How would I dream up a new motion? I mean, one of the greatest things that I just, have been able to think about is we recently passed a law legalizing marijuana for personal use recreationally here in Connecticut. They wrote the statute saying that the odor of marijuana shall not constitute reasonable grounds to search a motor vehicle. And I'm sitting there, I'm reading it because I have the time to digest this. And I said, they didn't write that the odor of burned marijuana would not constitute. So I'm already anticipating that there's going to be police officers pulling people over and saying, well, I smelled burned marijuana, and that's different from a marijuana smell. So now I can search the car. So now I've already got somebody working on a motion to suppress based on the legislative intent of something. Now, this isn't having to happen yet, but I freed myself, so I was able to think about something that could happen 6 months, 18 months down the line, and I'm going to be ready with a motion to hammer them with it right away because I freed myself of the minutia and I could focus on higher level lawyering.
Oh man, what a great point there, because that is the opportunity cost, right? Is the opportunity cost is without systems, predictability, and accountability is tied to them. You're constantly in the day-to-day, which John hates, right? And when you're constantly in the day-to-day, you can't do your job as a CEO, which is to look around corners, to inspire your team, to set standards. And when you're unable to do that, you're handicapped for growth. You may be able to maintain where you're at frantically, but it's a lot harder to pre-calculate growth when there's no predictability there. So this leads to my next question, which is optimizing systems, right? So as I hear you explaining this, Jay, you've created systems for almost every part of your practice, just like John. So it seems to me like optimizing your practice, you have a higher leverage input, meaning if you notice that there's a recurring problem with how people are handling X case or something in your marketing process, instead of you freaking out and getting frustrated with one person on your team, you're able to step back and go, wait a second, I could make one edit to the process, train the whole team on that process once, this edit, and now the next 5 or 6 occurrences of said problem will be solved because I've attacked the root cause and the system. So when you look at optimizing your practice with systems, what does this look like when you change one thing in a system that could have a multiplier effect?
So I actually have developed, it sounds crazy, but I have a system for optimizing our systems annually. I document, this is how I run my operation because I am a very logical, linear thinker, and this allows me to do that. So there's 3 things that I do every year. The first thing is I ask and I do this every year, and I do it the week between Christmas and New Year's, which is generally a down week for a lot of people, but it allows me to do some higher level thinking. First thing I do for my systems every year is ask myself, how would I beat us as a competitor? I'll sit down and I'll say, if I were a scrappy newcomer and I had no money but a lot of time, what would I do to beat the behemoth Ruane Attorneys, right? What would I do? How would I go about beating me at my own game? And then I flip it and I say, what if, in the terms of a PI, what if Morgan and Morgan, the 800-pound or 1,800-pound gorilla stepped into my space and they have a ton of money and a ton of teamwork? How would they beat me? And that type of thing. So that's an annual question that I always ask myself. The other thing I do during that week is I call it cut week. I review all my expenditures and see where I'm spending money I needlessly shouldn't. And you'd be surprised over the course of a year how you'll sign up for programs and things that you don't necessarily need to spend money on. You might have software that can do 2 different things, but you have 2 individual packages. And so you have to, you cut and you figure out where to go. And then the other thing I do that week is I do some goal setting for the year. And they're not my business goals. Because I built a business to support the life that I want. So they're my life goals. They will include some business things, but they'll also include some other things. So that is my annual system. I also have a semi-yearly system. And my semi-yearly system includes reviewing my employee organizational chart. Are the right people in the right seats? You'd be surprised what can happen in a 6-month period. You might have some tasks and responsibilities that need to be shifted because of new work or different work or particular projects that people are on. For example, we have a member of our office who's been basically out of the office working on a single file for 4 months. He's got another month to go on a massive, massive civil rights case. And so the things that he was doing before that, somebody needed to step in and handle. The other thing we want to look for semi-yearly is, okay, who can be cross-trained and in what areas? As you onboard new people, it's always good to have utility players. So a member of my reception team can be trained slowly on low-level intakes in a pinch. A member of my higher level intake person could be trained slowly on low-level paralegal tasks. And you're not necessarily moving them into that position, but you're training them for that day that somebody unfortunately gets hit by a car or wins the lottery and just leaves you. You want to have somebody that's there. So you're doing that semi-yearly review of your employees to make sure the butts are in the right seats. We do a semi-yearly audit of all of our systems. We're actually starting one September 1st. Now it takes us about 3 months to actually review because we've got 1,800 systems, and that involves one person whose job it is to review every system, identify which ones need to be modified, changed, updated. For something like Facebook marketing, the Facebook ads manager changes weekly, it seems. And so we need to do those things. Courts, with COVID have changed how they interact with the public. We need to do a lot of changes during that time period. And so that's super important to us. And then finally, we're going to do a semi-yearly review of our marketing. Are you paying as much attention to each channel that you should? Some people will put no attention on to generating referrals. Other people are all in on referrals. We like to have a healthy mix. But sometimes when you get excited about one particular area, you can ignore other ones. And so every 6 months, we want to make sure that we are, focusing ourselves on the task at hand when it comes to marketing and building our firm. And it's a lot of work. I mean, this is what I tell people is, if you are like me, from 1998 until, I don't know, last Friday, you're working 40 hours a week as a lawyer, and you have a second side hustle of being 40 hours a week as a law firm owner. And so you have to recognize that each one is an independent job, and you got to be working, 40 hours a week in each one, which means that you're working an 80-hour week. But the people who are willing to put in the work are the people who are going to succeed. And now I'm at 40 hours a week just in just being an owner, and I don't have to worry about the 40 hours a week of being a lawyer anymore, which is nice.